Okay, last session we managed to just barely kill a plague heart without losing any characters, though I had to check Paco into the infirmary to let him survive his bout with blood plague. He doesn't actually have a full-on infection. He got, I mean, he filled up his entire plague meter. He was less than a pixel from having full-on blood plague, but now he's recovering. Everything's fine, and I just realized that Honeybee here has got a shotgun, which means she might be able to help me get that one plague heart killed with a shotgun deal going on. So I don't know if she actually is well enough equipped for this, though. Definitely need some heals, definitely need some snacks. I'd like to have more explosives. Ooh, maybe I can figure out a good way to use a mine. Okay, so this might be okay. What's she got? She's got an axe. Maybe if I switch her to... Well, actually, what... Does she have a specialty? She doesn't have a fighting specialty, so I don't feel super committed to that axe.
This will slow me down.
Maybe if I grab her that beetle mallet or... Ooh, the double bit axe?
I'm really glad I found you guys.
Now, the mallet's got higher impact. Mallet basically has maximum impact, so it's going to be really effective against the plague heart compared to other weapons anyway. I got some fire to keep the Zeds off my back. I've got a box mine to set at an entrance somewhere. And I've got 8 shots with this shotgun. So the question is, can I do enough damage to the plague heart in melee first before firing the shotguns at it so that it's a shotgun blast that kills the heart? I don't know. At the same time, I've also got this Moonshiners thing. Mission? Is that what those are called? Those are called missions. So, okay. So I think what I'm going to try to do is head over to this warehouse, try to kill the plague heart, avoid these guys. I don't want to go after this plague heart because then these guys are going to get on the action. That's not going to be any fun. So I'm going to go after this plague heart, sneak over there, try to kill it with the shotgun, and then head over and see if I can make those Moonshiners happy without getting anyone killed. Oh, one other piece of equipment I need. My last toolkit. I just keep messing up this little 4-wheel drive vehicle here. So Kenny Lim asks, what time is it over there? I'm watching from Malaysia, and it's 6:22 p.m. Yeah, it is 2:25 in the morning for me right now, which is maybe an insane time to be streaming. I don't know. But basically, I mean, I don't stream during the day because, because I got a bunch of kids. Oh, look at all of them. Look at all of them. I can get the bounty right now.
Fire in the hole! That's all I got.
Is he gonna wander to the fire too? Yes. Nice. Okay, well that was some of the fire I intended to use while fighting the plague heart, but worth it for the bounty. All right, well I gotta wait till they clear the road before I can drive. But yeah, so I got a bunch of kids, and so streaming during the day is kind of tough because they could just sort of barge into my office anytime. Or even if I lock the door, it's nice to have a lock on my door finally. My previous office space did not have that. But even if I lock the door, you know, having kids bang on the door during my stream would be a little weird. So I stream late at night when everybody's asleep. And works well for me. I mean, I'm kind of a night owl anyway, so it kind of actually feels like a good time for me to stream. Okay, these idiots.
God, I am so sick of plague zombies.
Same. Alright. Let's see what we can do here.
What a wonderful smell we've discovered. I can barely swing this thing.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so here's the problem. She is overloaded. Oh, I wonder if she can, yes, hit zombies and the heart at the same time. A little bit she can do that. Wait, I just heard a snuffling from a feral. That, nope, nope. Dang it! Oh, I'm too close quarters. I can't get my shotgun out.
Almost out.
Okay, hold on.
Dear God, I'm tired.
Dang it, okay, well, it looks like... okay, looks like the shotgun was not actually for the Plague Heart, apparently. I might... why am I even going back in here? This is dumb. This is a dumb thing to be doing. Actually, yeah, I know, I'm not going to. No, I can't. I can't. Gotta bail. Gotta bail. Oh, of course, I'm on fire now. Ugh. Okay, here, hold on. Here we go. I don't have any snacks left. I used all the snacks. Okay, well, good thing. Good thing we haven't fixed the bug with the speed yet. And, yep, they're gonna mess up my Jeep like they always do. Okay, we gotta crash into something real quick. There we go. And we're smoking. Okay, well, that could have gone better. That could have gone a lot better. But, you know what? Maybe we can help our good friends, the Moonshiners, instead. All right. Well, let's look at our base. Can I make another repair kit? Yeah. Okay. So we get a repair kit. Replenish our... Okay. Maybe we don't need to carry that weapon. At least until we get a little stronger. Maybe instead... grab a fancy axe. We're going to keep this shotgun for emergencies, but try not to use it. And we'll grab one of these new repair kits. We'll grab some more snacks. And we'll go to help out the Moonshiners instead. And hopefully that'll go a little bit better. What am I doing? I'm repairing the Vagabond. Yeah, Tank, I don't know if we're ever gonna fix that bug with the character speed. I mean, still, combat is still slowed down enough that, you know, that it could easily be that we're already penalizing the player enough. We don't need to penalize them anymore. Oh, wait. This isn't even the right way to go. They're real close. That is super convenient. Thanks, Moonshiners, for moving in right next door. They really know how to think about other people. I didn't even need to drive over here. Hey, where are you going? Hey, Ryan. All right. So, yeah, let's pick up a few things for the still.
I honestly don't know.
You like that?
All right, where are we headed? Oh, down to... That looks like it's infested. And it's surrounded by all the... Really? Okay, well, this guy must know what he's doing. He's an absolute drunk, so... Okay, so Papa Bear has a question. First, Papa Bear says, good morning from the Poconos. You know what? I'm embarrassed. I don't actually know where the Poconos are.
Go!
Okay, fine. I've heard people talk about them. They sound like they're probably a nice place, because that's a tone that people use when they talk about them. I don't know anything about where they are. But his actual question is, how do names work? Are they randomized, like first names mixed with random last names? So this is my favorite thing to talk about. So you might not know what you've gotten yourself into. But the naming system was my baby. That was like the one thing in this game that I was most excited about working on. The way that the name... Oh. Screamer.
Not feeling too good.
Normally I don't hit things with my car, but...
Did you get bit by a plague zombie?
Nope. Not unless plague zombie is a brand of beer.
This guy is useless. Oh, I did not mean for that to land on that zombie. I meant for it to hit the other zombies. Alright, well, whatever. So this guy's sick, and he's just not being very helpful. Wow. It takes so many hits to kill these zombies. I will explain the names in a second, I swear. I'm just... Okay, Ryan, what's up? Why are you... Where are you going? Ryan! Ryan. Come here, buddy. What's up?
Hey, thank you.
Okay, so I gotta find some parts in this place. So,
It's locked.
names.
Could I be any louder?
So, there's several different aspects. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to let Nigel Meredith talk first. Anyway, so there's several different factors that sort of weigh into a character's identity and who they are. And
Not bad.
and most of them are relevant to how they get named. So if a character, for instance, is identified as male or female, that usually has a huge impact on the range of names that sound appropriate for that character. And a lot of this stuff, all this stuff I'm talking about, by the way, there are always going to be counterexamples to everything. Most of the decisions that we make are about trying to make characters that feel authentic, right? That feel like you don't have any, when you first encounter the character, you don't have any questions about, wait, is that character a real person, or was that character just generated by a computer? And one of the problems we face there is, even though the world is full of extremely unique people who have people have sometimes very unusual names, unusual combinations of traits, unusual histories and backstories
I think I've searched everywhere
that
I
make them
can.
just sort of stand out amongst all the other people in the world. When you know that a character is being generated by a computer, there's sort of a different set of expectations. Like if you meet a real person and they tell you a bunch of things about themselves, and you're like, oh wow, I've never met a person just like you. That's really kind of strange and unusual. How fascinating. It's cool to meet you. That's an experience you can have in real life. But when you are playing a game where you know the character is being randomly generated, if you meet a person who is too interesting, sometimes you're like, oh, what a dumb computer doing a bad job of generating a human. Even though that might be the same list of traits, it actually totally applies to lots of real people in the real world. So you just have to be careful. It doesn't mean that you can't make unusual and surprising characters or people who maybe have unusual backstories or belong to very small minorities. For instance, it's not that you can't have people who have those kinds of histories or those kinds of identities,
I'm not gonna find anything else here.
but you have to work harder to make sure the player understands that it's intentional, that it's not just sort of a random sort of an artifact of random generation, that it's actually a oh wait, should I talk to Ryan first? I should talk to Ryan before I get in the car. Because you want the characters to feel like they are
Thank you so much.
like the people are real. You don't want them to be just like, you don't want the way that you generate the characters to just make them feel extra fake all the time. So you have to sort of try to line things up. And so for instance, a character's gender will determine what names they have access to. The character's cultural background, which is tied into their appearance. Whether it looks like somebody is, white, black, Latinx, Asian, any of those, and any of the many other, categories that you can sort of shuffle people's appearance and cultural background into. Those are the main ones. Oh, and their age too. Their age makes a big difference. It's like if you meet someone named George, you expect them to be 60 years old, whereas if you meet someone named Aiden, you expect them to be 12. And there aren't a lot of old Aidens, and there aren't a lot of young Georges, and so that's really important too. So when we approach this problem of how to randomly generate character names, we had the big aspect of that problem that we had to solve was, how are we going? I mean, we could always just randomly generate names, just say, oh, give every character a random first name, random last name, and that's it. And the when we did that in State of Decay 1, the name list that we had, it was mostly a lot of German names. It actually felt like we'd specifically pinpointed a town in like Pennsylvania Dutch territory or something like that. and everyone felt like they fit into that one background. And so it actually made a lot of the characters feel kind of phony and inauthentic, because you would look at the character and you would listen to their voice and you'd look at their name and you'd be like, that character just does not look like they have that very specific German last name. That just doesn't seem like it belongs to that character. And so we wanted to do a better job the second time around. And so we're like, okay, so we're actually going to come up with a system where it looks at all these aspects of a character's identity. You know, like I said, their gender, their age, their cultural background, and then selects a first and last name that feel appropriate within reason. Now we actually make a lot of exceptions there, where it's like, you know, there's certain like lists of common names, for instance, where we kind of like for instance, if somebody has say a like a Chinese background, for instance, we'll have Chinese last names be the most common last names available to them, but they can also have sort of an Anglo last name as well, which, you know, there's lots of different reasons why somebody with with Chinese ancestry might still have an Anglo last name. And similarly, you know, the first names that they have to select from, some of them will be Chinese, but actually more often than not, there will be like an Anglo, a common Anglo first name for that character, just looking at sort of cultural trends, within the population of the United States, which is basically that's sort of what we're drawing from as the inspiration for characters in this game. Is this game takes place in the United States, and so we look at sort of the cultural mix of the United States and what names people tend to have in the United States if they come from different sort of heritages, and we tried to use that as being our sort of touchstone for what an appropriate name for a character was. And so you end up with a character who, you know, they'll basically we created a bunch of name lists that come from different backgrounds. And I think there's dozens of them, you know, with some of the larger ones being, you know, like Anglo-American, Mexican-American, African-American, so and then sort of going, you know, down the list, going smaller and smaller groups as far as their representation in the United States goes. And then we sort of tilted the balance of it a little bit so that it wouldn't be, because right now I think America is approximately like 70% Anglo-American, and that would just dominate the list. And so we didn't want to have it be like accurate demographics, and so we rebalanced it kind of the way you would have when you were, say, casting a TV show and you want to have, you know, a range of characters representing a diverse set of backgrounds, and you wanted to have that sort of interplay that comes from a bunch of different characters, all, you know, sort of having different backgrounds, and sort of there's just a sense of what am I trying to say, like kind of the way that, you know, two different notes that sound good together create a sense of harmony that make a musical composition sound more interesting. There's something similar you get from characters having different backgrounds on a TV series or in a video game or whatever. Is that there's a sense of like, oh, there's a diverse set of people here, and it feels really nice to not just have everyone be the same, not just be, you know, just playing octaves all the time, but actually like, you know, playing sort of using all of the notes at your disposal. And so yeah, so we kind of counterbalance it a little bit so that, you know, it's not just like 70% of the characters are white. And then basically, so each character, as they're generated, we assign them a gender, which is, we've done that. It's about 49, 2%, I think it's like male, female, non-binary characters, and then we, you know, assign sort of a rebalanced cultural background to them, and then we assign an age to them, and all of those are relevant to the character model that is chosen, sort of their appearance. You know, you look at these characters, and each of them, you can sort of look at them and you kind of infer their gender, their age, their cultural background, or at least a range of potential cultural backgrounds they might have from their appearance. And so because we, you know, you can look at a character and you make a lot of like immediate assumptions based on the character's appearance, we take those assumptions into account, and we basically we create a whole bunch of different lists of potential names a character can have, and based on, you know, and they basically narrow down the lists they can choose from based on their appearance. And so it's like, you know, so Travis here, for instance, you know, he looks like an older white guy. And so he chose from a list of names, a list of first names and last names that felt appropriate to that background, and ended up with Travis Jennings. And then the last step is choosing the nickname. And so Travis, for instance, you know, the most common thing is for a character just to choose their own first name as their nickname. So Travis did that. Fabio did that. Kellen, however, the name Kellen has got multiple nicknames associated with it. So each of the last names, each of the first names, and each of the traits in the game all have the potential to have multiple nicknames associated with them. So Kellen is going by Kel because that was one of multiple nicknames that we created for the name Kellen. He also could be going by Hunter, or he could be going by something based, like for instance, Always Cold. I'm betting that has some nicknames associated with it that he could have been given. But those are all weighted against each other, with your first name being the easiest one to roll, but then all of the other ones are also available. Over here we got Honeybee. So I'm not actually even sure why her name is Honeybee. I could probably look it up if I wanted to, log in and stuff over here. I could probably figure out where the name Honeybee came from. I'm genuinely not certain, because I don't know that it would necessarily be associated with Melissa or the last name Ha, but it doesn't sound like Student Mentor, sang in a band, or took self-defense. Any of those would give you the name Honeybee. So what this probably was I sent a poll around the studio asking people, do you know anyone with an interesting nickname that you'd like to get into the game? And so somebody probably had a friend named Melissa who went by Honeybee, and they probably submitted that to me. And I probably just made Honeybee a nickname for Melissa. Maybe. I can't promise that that's true because I don't have the name database right in front of me right now. But it's stuff like that. And then right here, that's one of the more interesting parts for me of this whole affair, was finding out about nickname traditions in other cultures. So, I grew up, just pretty middle of the road Anglo-American background. My family is my whole ancestry is Mormon, and so we have a Utah Mormon name list and cultural background, because that's where I come from, and I thought that would be kind of fun to represent that to people who have my same background. But I didn't know a lot, for instance, about Mexican nicknames. And so when I started looking into it, and I actually, I didn't just make all this stuff up by myself, by the way. I consult with each of the cultural backgrounds we represented. I tried to find someone that I could consult with who could give me firsthand knowledge of how these cultures, the naming practices worked, so that I could get it right, rather than just sort of me going off the top of my head with the assumptions and stereotypes and stuff like that I had. So, I worked with one of our world builders, is from Mexico originally, and so he walked me through Mexican nicknaming, which was I just didn't even understand how the sheer range of nicknames and things like that are common in Mexico. Like the name Paco, for instance, that's a pretty well-known name. They people, Anglos like me, I've known a guy named Paco, and I've heard that name a lot. I didn't know it was short for Francisco, and actually, and for me as an English speaker, I don't even make that connection in my head, why Paco would be a nickname for Francisco. Now, multiple people who have a Mexican background have told me that yeah, linguistically that actually makes perfect sense if you speak Mexican Spanish and you're used to the way things work. That obviously Francisco would shorten to something like Paco, and there's a whole bunch of other nicknames like that. And it was kind of funny to me because, and I've told this story before, feel free to skip if this is boring you and you're watching this on YouTube. But we actually, not only did I talk to friends that I had who came from a lot of these different backgrounds to get their impressions and feedback on the work that I was doing and their input to make sure that I was getting it right. We also ran this by a bunch of our localizing team, folks who translate our game into other languages, so that they could also give us a third pair of eyes, to make sure that we weren't missing anything obvious. We also went to diversity specialists and things like that to make sure that there weren't obvious cultural problems that we were just skimming by because we didn't know about them. But it's funny. So the Spanish language translator who looked over our Mexican name list rejected almost all of the names. He's like, no one would ever go by this. What are you talking about? This is not even a nickname. And I realized the guy was from Spain. He was an actual Spaniard, who spoke Spanish because he was from Spain. He did not speak Mexican Spanish. He didn't grow up in Mexico. He didn't know Mexican naming conventions, and so it was really good. So we had to make sure that we actually got very specific with all of our name lists. We couldn't just have a Spanish background name list. We have a Mexican American name list. We have a Cuban American name list. We have a Puerto Rican name list. We've got a Filipino name list that actually we've got multiple Filipino name lists. We've got like I think the Spanish one that they draw from, but we also have the indigenous Filipino name list that they pull from. In fact, we might even have multiple ones of those. So there's this, each of these places. I ended up needing to learn a lot about each of these cultures and their naming practices in order to accurately represent their names in the game. And so, like I said, thank you for asking that question. You opened up a huge can of worms by asking me about my favorite part of the game. So I think I've been missing a whole ton of chat, and sorry about that. That is something. Oh, so. So Awesome Twitch Dude asked, did you name the Enclaves too? Yes, I did. And he points out that he saw one called the Shit Pinatas. Yes. So yeah, I did name a lot of the Enclaves. I wasn't the only one. Andy Collins, our lead writer, also named a bunch of them. It was. We have one specific list called. Let's see here. We have one called the like aggressive enclaves, and those ones often have some of the more offensive sounding names because they're deliberately trying to sound like jerks and trying to sound intimidating with their names. And then we have another enclave name list called the Weird Enclave name list, and it's just every bizarre name we come up with that doesn't go on any other list goes on Weird Enclaves. And so there's a few specific missions that use the Weird Enclave name list, and so I always feel happy when I get one of those. So okay, let me scroll down here a little bit more. Solomon Epstein says that I should make a State of Decay Amish country game and just use those old original name lists from like that felt like they were all from Pennsylvania Dutch country. That's actually, honestly, I would love to see a zombie story set amongst sort of a kind of a what do you call communities like that are just low tech on purpose. That sort of avoid modern conveniences and sort of rely on sort of older fashioned ways of doing things. I don't know if there's a broader term for it because there's multiple societies that do that. I don't know if there's a broader term for it, but I would love to see a zombie story set in a group like that and just sort of like, or so any kind of apocalypse story and just sort of highlight the fact that because of the way these people live, they actually would be much better suited to survival than people who've just come to absolutely depend on modern conveniences. So yeah, so if somebody doesn't do it, I don't know. So, somebody ought to do that. Like I don't know if that's going to be us. We tend to try to represent a very broad adaptation of the zombie mythos overall, and so getting that narrow and specific might not be an easy thing for us to do. But someone should do that. I want to see that story. If only I knew any writers, Solomon. Oh well, anyway. Let's see. Okay, so Brian Woodward says, I was doing the clear infestation mission for the distillers on Lethal, and my follower just ran straight into the infestation and died. Yeah, I've had a few things like that. We definitely we built these missions when there were no difficulty levels. And there are certain things that we do have characters do that, are completely survivable and okay on standard zone that just immediately kill people in lethal zone. And so, I mean, we were not in a position to just go through and redo all of our missions for the lethal zone when we added it. But yeah, doesn't surprise me at all. Let's see here. The tank says, I wish you'd let us climb onto house roofs more. That is like one of the good things about fighting zombies around a strip mall is that you can climb up a ladder and get on the roof whenever you want to, which helps a ton. Since I am not even playing the game right now, I'm just answering chat. Maybe I should just switch it up so that it's my face dominating the screen. Oh yeah, so Kenny Lynn points out that if you play through from the tutorial, you get less plague hearts. That he got actually like 19 hearts instead of over 30. Yeah, that is absolutely intentional. We deliberately gave people when you play through the tutorial, we spawn fewer plague hearts because we want people who are playing the game for the very first time to be able to sort of get through their first campaign more quickly and see the fact that the game is kind of a new game plus structure that we're hoping they'll start multiple communities and they'll play through sort of the early more interesting survival sequences. They'll play through that more. That more of the game would be that, and less of the game would be, my community is just all tricked out and they can do anything they want, and we're just sort of hovering here at the end. There are a lot of players for whom that is actually the experience they want, and that wasn't sort of the way what we expected up front, and we're actually sort of leaning towards trying to figure out, are there better ways we can support that play pattern? But anyway, but from the beginning, the way we sort of designed the game was with the assumption that it was good if people understood that you could complete a playthrough and then start a new one. And so we wanted that first playthrough to be short and unintimidating, and then let people sort of ease into multiple communities over time. So Reneth Court says, I have a character named Venancio Inda, whose nickname is Dun. Any ideas on that one? I don't know what we could have given them the nickname Dun if their name is Venancio Inda. It could easily be associated with practically anything. I mean, I don't know what their traits are. So sometimes when people have questions like that, if I'm actually like at work and I've got all my work stuff out on my machine, I'll just go look it up in the name list. I usually have the name list open in the editor at any given time, and I can look it up. In fact, you know what? I don't think it would be that hard for me to just pop it open right now. Do you want to do that? Do you want to just pop open the name list and do some research here? So, okay, so actually I think I've got an encrypted hard drive so that, people can't like steal the game. So hold on, let me stick in the password there, which will then allow me to open up the editor. And I'm not gonna share this on my screen with you guys just because, I don't know, that feels weird and dangerous. But let me open up, let's see, where is it? It's hidden deep in a weird file folder structure. Characters, names, source data. There we go. Okay. So I've opened up the character name list and I've got the traits open. So I'm going to do a little search for the name Dun. All right. So let's see. So it shows up as a last name. That's not helpful. It shows up as... it's just another spelling of a last name. So, yep, still not helpful. But in the traits, you can be named Dun if you have... if you've got a dense bone condition. Okay, so... okay. I have a friend who actually has got the genetic condition that was sort of represented in the movie Unbreakable, where like his bones are actually unusually dense, and his whole family has it. And actually, he's got a brother who had serious medical problems because he got into a serious injury that would have broken a normal person's leg, but because his bones were so dense, it actually bent his femur instead of snapping it. I think that family's last name might have been Dunn, and that might be why I made Dunn the one of the nicknames for dense bone condition. So that could be it. And then similarly, Unbreakable, same thing. Yeah, so that's why. It's just an obscure person that I happen to know. That's where, and that is where a lot of the nicknames come from. Is they come from just random associations that people at the lab had. Often me, but I also have polled people to share their weird nickname stories. And so yeah, so that's where stuff like that often comes from. There was another one I was going to look up, wasn't there? What was it? Like was it one of the characters in my game that I've got going? It was Honeybee. Honeybee. Let's look up Honeybee. Figure out where that comes from. So Honeybee. It is on the character name list, and yeah, I've got it as a nickname for Melissa. So. I do know multiple people named Melissa. I probably heard that from one of them and then forgot. So it probably is named after a real person named Melissa in the world who just goes by Honeybee, or maybe was called that by her grandmother at some point or whatever. And yeah, so there you go. Okay, I'm trying to scan down here, see if there's any other names that any other comments that I really should have responded to. Oh yeah, so Nuri Mikhail agrees that connecting Francisco and Paco is a difficult thing for people who don't come from that background. And so yeah, that's the thing. It's like the thing I was kind of going for with a lot of this stuff was I really wanted somebody who, I'm hoping this has happened at least once, that somebody from a background that is very rarely represented in video games, I want them to get a character that is from their background, and I want that character to have a name that clearly means that someone that someone who understood their culture worked on this game. Now, I don't fully understand a lot of these cultures. I don't come from that background, but I did consult with like almost every single culture that's represented in the game. I consulted with somebody and had somebody look over the name list and make suggestions, and review everything and find mistakes. So that these names would be authored, at least to some degree, by somebody who really did come from that background and really did understand how these names worked. And so I wanted people, who often feel unrepresented in games, to have the experience in this game that they would see characters who really do feel like they came from their same background. So hoping that having, like Paco here, who you can sort of see on the screen, I'm hoping that he's an example of that. But there's hopefully thousands of others. That's my crossing my fingers. Let's see. Oh, so it's your boy Lewis asks, how hard would it be to allow enclaves to stay put or together when you recruit them? Or like 2 to 4 survivors coming basically into your community at once. It's not technically hard. There's actually a few places in the game where we do it. The main reason we didn't, and so I wasn't actually directly involved with the decision not to allow that. So I don't think I can accurately describe or fairly describe sort of the exact thought process that led there, but I think it had something to do with if you could recruit that many people at once, it could be potentially unbalancing in some ways, but I think there's actually more of a technical problem, which was so we have kind of an awkwardly implemented population limit where we don't like surface it to players. We don't tell them how close they are to the population limit or what it is or how it works, which is unfortunate. It's something that I really would like to fix. But if we allowed you to recruit multiple people at a time, it would be really common to run up against the population limit, or sometimes cross it by a little bit, or something like there's a lot of weird mathematical situations we could get in that could be difficult to manage. And so kind of across the board, we're like, no, partly for balance issues and partly for that, we didn't allow it. But it is a great ambition of mine that before we're done working on this game, I would like to readdress the way we handle the population limit, maybe raise it a little bit, but the main thing would actually just be much clearer about it, let you make really well-informed decisions about how to handle the population limit. And I would love to let you recruit more people than just one from an enclave. And so that's, I don't know when we would get to it. We do have other more pressing priorities up ahead of us right now, so it's not the next thing we're going to work on. But I would love to get there. That would mean a lot to me, because it drives me crazy. Like I don't like having the game work the way it does right now. So Arrow 2001 says there are also some Australian naming conventions that confuse the hell out of me. No, we are not representing Australians in this game, and I think that's probably because they do there are a lot of nicknaming, like whenever you're watching movies that are set in Australia or that are made by Australians or TV series, that kind of thing. There are usually clever nicknames coming out of that culture that you would not hear anywhere else, and I love that. And so so we don't have Australians, but in our game, partly just because, if someone has a name that feels distinctly Australian, you kind of expect them to have an accent that's Australian, which is not really, obviously there's lots of people who, have Australian backgrounds, who might be, have Australian nicknames, who don't necessarily have Australian accents. But again, it's one of those weird things where it's like, that those people exist, but if you run into a character who seems really distinctly Australian and they don't talk like an Australian, you start feeling like, oh, the game is weird. The game messed up. There's a mistake in the random generation. And you read it as a problem rather than reading it as an interesting character. And so it's an awkward line to walk. We also don't have any characters that are distinctly, British, Scottish, Irish, Jamaican, because all of those folks speak English, and then you kind of expect them to speak English like someone from that background. Raneth Cord suggested the word Luddite for people who have sort of who are opposed to high technology, though he recognizes, and I agree, that Luddite is more like a hostility to technology and anger about technology. It came from sort of like a lot of like class struggle type stuff that I think went on in like England at a certain point in history, and it's not really related to the more religiously motivated low technology decisions. And so Luddite would be the wrong word for that kind of tradition. But so I think we're on the same page about that. Red Cougar UK asks if there's ever going to be any new missions added to State of Decay 2. I suspect so. Can't say any more about it though. Nuri Mikhail is asking about AI commands, whether we'll ever add the ability for you to like tell your squad, or whatever, your follower what to do. The main problem there, well, number one, making AI do anything is hard. As you can see, our AI sometimes does crazy stuff in our game. We haven't, I'd love to put more work into it. But at least in our game right now, you've never told them to do anything in particular, and so they can't fail to do the thing you asked them to do. If we add commands, we definitely have to nail them doing exactly what you told them to do. So it'll be a lot of work if we ever add that. That's part of it. The other thing is there's not a lot of buttons left on our controller. Maybe we could sort of co-opt the emote system or something to make it work. I'm not sure, but there are not a lot of places to put those kinds of commands. If you're playing on PC, then the keyboard obviously has like infinite keys as far as games are concerned, but a lot of players play our game with a controller, and we've filled it up, so it would be really difficult to do. Prophet X says, I'd like to be able to recruit the ant, the prepper ant. Yeah, I'd love that too. There's several characters who we allude to in missions that I'd like to be able to sort of actually bring out of the woodwork and into the actual community. But I think I'd like to get relationships working, because a lot of them are people specifically, they're like family members and stuff. I'd love to honestly get like some kind of real representation of characters having relationships with each other into the game, and that's probably when I would want to be able to bring the prepper ant in, when we can actually have the character be meaningfully the aunt of the character who went on that mission. Because if your aunt comes in and then there's nothing special about those two characters, that just feels weird, right? There's no particular mourning that your character does after their aunt dies, would be odd. It's like, unless we can support family members actually, because I mean, right now we have these family relationships and romantic relationships and like long-standing friend relationships in the tutorial characters, and a lot of players comment that it's weird that those characters don't have a special relationship after they get into the community, after the tutorial's over. And so I don't want to add more cases of that until we've actually come up with a better solution for it. And again, no promises. I don't know if that's ever going to make it into the game. It's not the next thing we're working on, and so I can't make any promises about it at all, but I would love for that to get in. So Shinji says, I once rolled a character who was a chemistry professor named Heisenberg. Yep, that is definitely one of the names we put on chemistry professors. But unfortunately, it was an early nightmare run through, and so probably that character died. I understand. Oh, Java Monsoon, I don't even get the reference that you're making. It says that Honeybee should have been called Isabella Bennett, and I don't know what that means, so I feel ignorant. Fadope says, I got all the legacy boons on lethal. Any harder difficulties planned? No. I think it would be kind of pointless for us to keep trying to stack additional entire difficulty levels on top of the ones we have. We already have 5. That's a lot of difficulty levels, and so I think we will find ways to make the game harder for people who want it to be harder. I don't think it will be with another difficulty level. I think we'll find other ways to do it. So I don't know. Stay tuned. More on that later. Oh, and so Itsy Boy Lewis actually wanted to know, would it be possible to recruit someone from an enclave and still have the enclave stick around? That is actually I think we haven't really addressed any of the technical challenges involved in this, so I don't know if this is the way it would work if we actually ended up doing it, but the way I imagine it is, I'd love to just make it so that either the enclave doesn't disappear when you recruit from them, or if we have to make them disappear for some technical reasons, that they sort of give you a grace period where they hang around and give you the chance to recruit a few more before they go away, or maybe give them a limit, like if you get them down to 1 character, they're like, okay, well, I'm just gonna, get out of here then if everyone else is going to join these weirdos, but maybe wait until it gets down to 1 character rather than just immediately, no matter how big the enclave is, just dissolving the whole thing. Oh yeah, so the tank is making suggestions about like what kinds of meaning we could put behind character relationships, like morale bonuses, for instance, or negatives or sometimes negatives for having family bonds. So I think the most important thing would be having someone react to a death. I think if you don't react to the death of a family member, then something's wrong with you. And so I think that would be really important. And then yeah, I would love to just like have there be advantages to like having people who are closely related going out together as followers, for instance, or maybe there's some benefit they could have, like you said, to morale, or something that goes on in the base that you can do if you have family members. I like, there's so many possibilities. I kind of am not zeroing in on any particular one, but I just feel like there's something meaningful we could do there to make it feel like, oh, these characters actually are related, rather than just having it be like sort of a very superficial thing with the mission that spawned the characters, and then that's it, and it just goes nowhere after that. So Papa Bear suggests trust meters for each community member. Build relationships. That would be so cool. So if we actually had meters building towards relationships with every pair of characters, imagine you've got a community of like 10 people, for instance. That's, you know, not an unusual community size, and that's not 10 relationships. That's 10 factorial relationships. That's like 1 times 2 times, was it 1 times? Yeah, 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 times 6 times 7 times 8 times 9 times 10 relationships between all those characters. That's too many relationships. So if we were to do relationships, I think we could not be something like that, where it's like every pair of characters has got a relationship between them, because it's too much. You know, it's like we have to keep our simulation systems simple for players to be able to grok them while doing other things like fighting zombies with Molotov cocktails. And so we would probably try to make relationships be rarer and more special, and only basically most people do not have formal relationships. And then the ones that do, it really matters and stands out a lot, and there's a limited number of them. That would be my preference for how we would handle it. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, Josh Annalise is correcting my math that it actually is probably fewer than 10 factorial. You're probably right. I didn't think it through before I said that. And so, yeah, I think 10 factorial, you're right. It would be something more like if we had to order the characters in a certain number of ways or something. That would be for more complicated stuff. For just relationship matchups, you're probably right. It is not 10 factorial. It's probably a simpler math problem than that. Sorry. But either way, it's a large number. You know, it's like you're suggesting it's probably 90. If it's 90, that's too many. And so yeah, so it's still ridiculous. Okay, so so Java Moonsoon says that Isabella Bennett is a member of Steam Powered Giraffe. She wrote the song Honeybee 9 years ago. Give the song a listen. She also composed music for Steam World Heist. Oh, okay, I love Steam World Heist. So obviously that's an attractor for me. So cool. There are, like, I think I've made some references to obscure bands and things like that in this, like, I think that isn't there an achievement called like Letters from Cleo or something like that, which is me making reference to Letters to Cleo, which is a band I listened to in high school. Let's see here. Okay, I got Twain talking to me, so that makes me want to... I don't know how loud Twain is next to me, and so I don't want to be talking while he's talking. So, I'm having trouble reading somebody's name here, but they're asking, would it be possible for Undead Labs to let us fully customize our survivors' outfits? I mean, not just swapping outfit and hat, but actually being able to say jacket, shirt, pants, that kind of thing. So when we were approaching this, there were a lot of different ways we could have done it. Personally, I actually kind of like the fact that we sort of have that each outfit is still like hand authored and created, by like our artists to sort of make it look as good as they possibly can, and that whenever somebody is sort of like streaming our game or whatever, they only see super good outfits and not weirdo outfits. So that's one thing that's sort of holding me back a little bit, but it's just complicated. Like you would need a much more complex UI setup in order to make that degree of customization. And so I feel like we've got enough customization right now that it feels good. It's not as much control as a lot of people want, but the cost as you're raising the amount of control goes up exponentially. And so like I think so we found a middle ground where okay, we could make outfits work and be good enough, but still get them done in the time frame we have, and then move on to another thing, because that team moved on to make the new difficulty levels after they made the outfits. And so it's like, you know, we would not have a lethal zone today. We would have one eventually probably, but we would not have one today if we had made a more complicated version of the outfit system. And so that's sort of the kind of trade-off we have to make all the time, which is like, we want to do lots of things. And so that means that each thing has to be limited in scope so that we can get it done, get it in an update, and then move on to something else. Because we could have made the world's best outfit system, but it might have, you know, taken until now for it to come out. And I'm glad that it came out over a year ago instead. I think that works better. Fadope, hold that thought. Wait just a little bit, and you'll find out the answer to that question. Okay, so let me see here. What have I missed? Fadope, I don't know about the flickering vans. That's not a thing that I've heard of. By the way, if you ever have a bug and it's been bothering you for a while, definitely report it to support.stateofdecay.com, because you can like lodge a ticket there and stuff like that. That stuff that will really result in bugs ending up on our plates. Like something like that, like a small visual flickery bug. I'm not likely to be able to sort of get that. I'm going to forget about that by tomorrow. Because it's a minor thing. It's not breaking the entire game. But if you go through those channels, and especially if you have like, if you've recorded any video of it happening, that kind of thing, then it will get on somebody's plate, and somebody will get the chance to to address it potentially. But that's the best way to do it. Oh, anxiety. Okay, yes. Now that I'm so that name that I couldn't read before, it was a funky sort of leet speak. Spelling of anxiety, and now that I've looked at it and somebody said it out loud, of course it's anxiety. So now I know what to call you. Cool. Anyway, okay, so I think that, see, how long have I been doing this? I've been doing this a while. I did not intend for this session to last this long, so I'm going to go into wrap-up mode using my new Stream Deck. Boop. I'm going to go into wrap-up mode, and you can subscribe to my channel if you want to have more of these weird, lengthy Q&As where I'm not playing a game. And if that's your thing, go for it.